Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, and if you are new, welcome to my channel. I am Jamie Beth. Today is another story time and makeup. So we are going to talk about a serial killer today, and he is considered to be the first serial killer in America. His name is H.H. Holmes. Now you might have gotten a glimpse of him if you are an American Horror Story fan. I know, again, I'm referencing American Horror Story, but he was in American Horror Story Hotel. If you are a fan of the American Horror Story series, check out Hotel. I believe he shows up somewhere in the middle of the season. I'm not sure. I don't remember. But anyways, it is cool. But that is the first time I've ever heard of this guy. And since I have researched him a little bit more, and holy cow, this guy was crazy. Holmes was born as Herman Webster Mudgett in Gilmanton, New Hampshire on May 16th, 1861. He was a middle child, so he had 2 older siblings and 2 younger siblings. He was part of a farming family, and his family were devout Methodists. At the age of 16, Holmes graduated from the Phillips Exeter Academy and took teaching jobs in Gilmanton and later in nearby Alton. In 1878, he married his first wife, Clara Lovering, and they had a son, Robert Lovering Mudgett, who was born sometime in 1880. Guys, if you can see the little flakies in my hair, I am so sorry. My scalp is so dry and I don't know what to do. If anyone has any little remedies to take care of dry scalp, please let me know, because this is embarrassing. Holmes enrolled at the University of Vermont at the age of 18. But he was pretty dissatisfied with the school and left about a year later. He then entered University of Michigan's Medical and Surgery Department and graduated in 1884. While enrolled at the University of Michigan, he worked under a professor named Professor Herdman, who was the chief of anatomy. So he worked very closely with this professor on cadavers and dissecting them and working on them, and he was really enthralled in that type of thing. Holmes also had apprenticed in New Hampshire under Nahum White, a noted advocate of human dissection. Years later, when Holmes was suspected of murder and claimed to be nothing but an insurance fraudster, he did admit to using cadavers to defraud life insurance companies while he was in college. Before Holmes graduated, his wife actually left him, and I believe it, from what I've read, he didn't really get along with this wife really well, so they went their separate ways, and she moved back to New Hampshire and later wrote that that was it. She really knew nothing of him past that point. Holmes moved to New York shortly after, and then a rumor started going around that he was responsible for a little boy that went missing. So he was getting accused of doing something to this little person, and that's really all that was said about that. Nothing else was really said about what happened, but rumors went around that the last time someone saw anybody with this little boy, he was with Holmes. As soon as an investigation started happening regarding this little boy, Holmes moved away. He left town and moved back to Massachusetts. He later traveled to Pennsylvania and got a job as a keeper at a state hospital. Later took a position at a drugstore in Philadelphia, and while he was working there, another boy died after taking medicine that was purchased at the store. Holmes denied any involvement with the child's death, and again immediately left the city once people started talking and investigating this happening. Holmes was thinking of moving to Chicago next, and before he moved to Chicago, he changed his name, what we know now as Henry Howard Holmes, so H.H. Holmes. He changed his name to prevent being exposed of his previous scams. Once in Chicago, he came across a drugstore, the Elizabeth Holton's drugstore. Elizabeth Holton gave Holmes a job there, and he proved to be a very hardworking employee, eventually buying the store from her. There are two different stories about what happened to Elizabeth and her husband. A lot of stories say that they disappeared and, were never seen from again, so they were thinking that Holmes might have done something to them. And I've also read stories that said they were living just in another location. So I don't know. I don't know what's true or what isn't. I'm just going by the things that I've read and researched. While still married to Clara, Holmes married Myrta Belknap in Minneapolis, Minnesota. He filed for a divorce from Clara, claiming she was unfaithful, but nothing came about it. They're not even sure Clara ever even received the information that her husband wanted to divorce her. So nothing happened of it. So now he has two wives, technically. He did have a daughter by the name of Lucy, and Myrta and Lucy lived apart from Holmes. Holmes stated that he needed to travel a lot and had some business in Chicago that he needed to attend to, so he wasn't home very often. In 1887, Holmes purchased an empty lot across from the drugstore that he owned, and he wanted to build this elaborate 3-story building. In 1892, the building itself was somewhat completed, and it consisted of 3 stories and a basement. The first floor was a storefront, which housed the new pharmacy or drugstore that he had across the street. He moved that over to this new building, and it had a few other stores on that floor. The second floor, however, what consisted of elaborate torture rooms. There were soundproof rooms, there were mazes in the hallways that were meant to kind of throw you off and discombobulate you. There were rooms that were outfitted with chutes that would drop you straight into the basement, where Holmes had acid vats, he had a crematorium, he had quicklime. There was a whole bunch of seedy things down in that basement, including a surgical table. And he made use of this surgical table, an array of medical tools to dissect his victims before selling their organs and bones on the black market or to medical institutions. So he would sell the skeletons to medical institutions. The third floor held apartments and just other rooms for people to use. In 1894, some police officers inspected this hotel or this building while Holmes was not there. During their inspection, they found rooms with hinged walls and false partitions, rooms linked with secret passageways, and even airtight rooms that were connected to pipelines filled with gas, which Holmes used as gas chambers. One of Holmes's early victims was a mistress of his named Julia Smythe. She was the wife of Ned Connor. I'm not sure why she had a different last name than him, but that is the way the story goes. He had moved into Holmes' building and began working at his pharmacy, the pharmacy's or drugstore's jewelry counter. After Connor found out about the affair his wife was having with Holmes, he quit his job and moved away, leaving Smith and her daughter Pearl at this hotel, so she can continue her relationship with Holmes. So Julia and Pearl did end up disappearing right before Christmas Eve in 1891. Holmes later claimed that she died during an abortion that he performed on her, although the true whereabouts of Julia and Pearl are still unconfirmed. Although it was said that he did donate a skeleton to a local college after their disappearance. Holmes also had a secretary that worked for him that mysteriously disappeared, and what they believed happened to her is that there was a safe that he had built in the building, and he locked her and he had her go in it to get something and locked her in there. And by being locked in the safe, she slowly suffocated. While working at the Chemical Bank building, Holmes met a man named Benjamin Pitezel. And Benjamin Pitezel ended up becoming Holmes's right-hand guy. In 1893, Holmes met a woman by the name of Minnie Williams. He claimed to have met her in an employment office, though there were rumors he had met her in Boston years before. He offered her a job to work for him, and she accepted. And he then persuaded her to sign over a deed to property that she had in Texas. A man named Alexander Bond, which was really just one of Holmes's many aliases. In 1893, she in fact did transfer this deed, with Holmes serving as a notary on this. The next month, Holmes and Williams, presenting themselves as man and wife, rented an apartment in Chicago's Lincoln Park with her sister Annie. The sister Annie later wrote to her aunt that she was planning on traveling with this friend and her sister. Neither of them were ever seen alive again. He was arrested for the first time in July of 1894. A brief time in jail. There, he met a man by the name of Marion Hedgepath. The two of them concocted a plan to swindle an insurance company out of $10,000 by taking a policy out on himself and then faking his death. So Holmes promised this man $500 if he could give him the name of a lawyer that could be trusted, that he could carry out the scam. He was directed to an attorney by the name of Jephthah Howell. So this attorney had no problem being convinced to be part of this insurance fraud, and kind of thought Holmes was a bit brilliant for thinking it up. Holmes's plan to fake his own death failed when the insurance company became suspicious and they would not pay. So he got Pitezel in on the plan to fake his death and collect the money. Pitezel did agree to fake his own death and had his wife listed as the beneficiary so she could collect the $10,000 life insurance policy, which she would then split with Holmes and this Jephthah Howell. What Holmes planned was for Pitezel to set himself up as an inventor named B.F. Perry, and be killed and disfigured in a lab explosion. And Holmes's job was to find an appropriate cadaver to play the role of Pitezel after this incident has happened, and then Pitezel would conveniently hide out until everything has blown over. In fact happened was Holmes murdered Pitezel. Holmes rendered him unconscious using chloroform and then set his body on fire. After Pitezel's death, Holmes was able to collect the insurance policy. He went on to manipulate Pitezel's unsuspecting wife and allowing him to take 3 of their 5 children. So he took the 3 middle children and she had the oldest and the baby with her. Soon, the 3 Pitezel children that were in the care of Holmes went missing as well. All of this was happening while he was still hanging out with his 3rd wife. Oh, and I didn't even tell you he had a 3rd wife. So he had another wife. He married a woman by the name of Georgiana York. He was still technically married to Clara and Myrta. Now, none of the wives were ever killed. They were all still very much alive. He never killed any of his wives. Anyways, Holmes later did confess that he murdered Alice and Nellie Pitezel by forcing them into a large trunk and locking them inside. While they were inside this trunk, he drilled a hole into the trunk and placed a pipe that was connected to gas. So he asphyxiated these young girls. He then buried their nude bodies in a shallow grave in the basement of a house. There was an investigator that was assigned to try to find these 3 children. He did find the decomposing bodies of the 2 girls, and as well as finding the charred bone fragments of the little boy, Howard Pitezel, in an oven of another home. So he did in fact murder the 3 children. Following the discoveries of the children's bodies, police did inspect the building in Chicago and found more evidence to convict Holmes of murder. Holmes was put on trial for the murder of Benjamin Pitezel and was found guilty and sentenced to death. Holmes gave various contradictory accounts of his life, initially claiming innocence and then later claiming to be possessed by Satan. His propensity for lying has made it very difficult for researchers to ascertain the truth on any of the statements that he's made. So when they say he killed 27 people, it probably was more. The number wasn't probably that high, or it could have been. You never know, because he would never tell the same story twice. In May of 1896, Holmes was hanged. Until the moment of his death, he remained calm and amenable, showing very little signs of fear, anxiety, or depression. He did later request that he be buried or that his coffin be contained with cement all around it and be buried 10 feet deep, because he was concerned about grave diggers digging up his body and dissecting him to try to see why his brain functioned the way it did. That is our story today on H.H. Holmes, America's first serial killer. If you like these story times and makeup, I do them every other Friday, so be sure to click that subscribe button as well as the notification bell so that you are notified every time one of these videos pops up. I hope you enjoyed this video. I really like doing them. Thank you so much, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.